So, Jeannie, thank you so much for joining me for this interview. I'm so excited.
Yes.
Jeannie is one of my favorite people on the planet who is a radical thinker about like the place, the threshold where we all join together, which is like in human interaction. And she has
Yeah.
this like amazing company and this an amazing idea, a concept, and like framework for
Yeah.
effective interactions, right? And what I'm hoping to provide people who are watching is some just great wisdom and insight from your life, from your experience, um,
Okay.
and
Great.
in thinking about how they can be more powerful in just human interaction and
Yeah.
kind of where we get off the rails or where we
Well,
miss the target.
you make me think of like this radical awakening that I think kind of woke me up. Okay. And when people ask me, why do I have these feelings about interpersonal interaction? I think a lot of it goes back to the situations was in when I was very young. But my real belief is that from concluding is that we are all suffocating and we don't even know we're suffocating. We're leaving unrealized potential always unrealized. Okay. And we're leaving some of the best ideas um, unseen, really. And we are aware of that when we are the person who makes an offering to somebody and they don't catch it. We are very aware of that. But what we're blind to is the ways that we are not prepared and we are not catching what we don't expect.
Ooh, so can you tell me like in a super just
So,
concrete example for me?
well, decision analysis helps us become friends with uncertainty, but effective interactions helps us become friends with the unexpected.
Mm.
Okay, with difference. So if you tell me something I expect you to say, I can catch it. But what if you tell me something, Amy, that actually is something that is different than I expected of you? What do you think I'll do? Survey says I will try to explain it away. So let's say that you are a teacher and you have a poor student and your student gets 100% on your test. I have already locked in with rigid clamps that that student is poor and they cannot change. So this is an assumption that I'm rigidly holding on to, that I'm unaware that I'm rigidly holding on to, and that becomes the largest cost to my own suffocation. So if that person gets 100% of my test, because I'm so wedded already to their remaining a poor student, that I have to explain away this unexpectedness, this surprise. And this is how I would typically do it. Well, that student cheated. Not only are they a poor student, they cheated. And then I might go on to say, oh, the test was just too easy.
Oh my goodness. So you create a whole story that supports your belief.
Call a rationale. So so I intake what's in front of me. There are two processes to intaking information. I intake and then I encode it. I make sense of it. And we use our brains to make sense of it in a similar way that we breathe in oxygen through our nose, but then our lungs process it. We eat food through our mouths and our stomachs process it. So we were designed as humans to intake something external and then process it internally. All the systems are hardwired except for our, what I call receptory system. Okay. Or perceptory system. So have you heard of a perceptory system? We've heard of a digestive system and a respiratory system and a nervous system, right? But so we can intake signals of pain with our nervous system. We can intake food. And our bodies can process it. They're hardwired in the sense that we can't interfere with them. So if I don't eat, I'm going to be hungry. If I don't breathe, I'm going to die. If I don't move my hand from the flame, it's going to get burned. So I'm going to not be deprived of a correct outcome that will then cause me to take my hand away from a hot surface, for example. Right?
Right. So it just like you get a feedback and you
Yes.
take appropriate action because of
Right.
that feedback right away.
So the feedback loop is closed. But the feedback loop is not closed in the perceptory system. because we can intervene. And instead of learning, oh, I thought that student was poor, they must not be that bad of a student, right? Let me change me and upgrade my belief. That's what learning is, right? So you can also call this the learning system, okay? So the learning system in human beings can be turned off, can be completely turned off. And I can fool myself. I can think it's turned on because instead of learning, I intake this discrepant data and I rationalize it, and I completely mistake my rationalization, which is exactly not learning, for learning. So I leave. How many people go into meetings and they walk out at the same knowledge state and they call that meeting a great meeting? Okay. I want to walk out of the meeting and think differently about stuff. So I envision these meetings saying, okay, I'm putting all my cards on the table face up. Tell me what you don't like and what you don't agree with. And I want that to be my opening sentence. But instead, we try to reach for agreement instead of lean into difference. And that's one of the biggest shifts. In decision analysis, it's all really about structured learning. What do I do with my learning? But if I don't have learning to do stuff with it, then that whole decision cycle gets a little bit perturbed, right? So if I don't have great options, it's very typical for companies in a strategy process, for example, to come up with this year's strategy to make it a little bit exactly last year's strategy, but just a little bit different, instead of to really use the resources that you have in that moment to come up with something great, right?
Right. So
I'm trying.
where have you seen in your personal life, just in because obviously, I mean, I think we forget that even if we're in business or at home or with
Yeah.
ourselves or our niece or whatever, that we're still
Yeah.
the same human being.
Well,
Right there.
I look for different things. Like if we liking it, I like the word inspire, okay? Because you can use that for air and breathing. I have to breathe in order to keep my body alive. But I have to, and I use the word receive, I have to receive, not just take, I have to receive, which means I can't just say the dessert was good. I have to say how it affected me. I enjoyed it very much, or the soup was too hot for me, or I was disappointed I didn't get upgraded on this airplane, or I was grateful I got upgraded on the airplane. We have to get to what I call our own modifiability. Okay. And that indicates to me that I've not only intaken what was in front of me, but I've also processed it to create something of great value. Right. And so the only thing in this data driven world that I uniquely can give other people, they can't look it up on any database. Okay. It changes by the second. So it can't be cataloged. And the most valuable information I can offer somebody is how I am affected by the situation or by the information.
So
right?
giving them Jeannie's feedback.
Instead of giving them my feedback. And you know what I'm not good at is giving people Amy's feedback. I know nothing about Amy's feedback. We have to get her to do it. Now, it turns out in communication, right? If I allow Amy to share with me how she was affected, then if somebody said, can you tell me how Amy was affected? I'm like, I think I can. You know why? Because I didn't try to agree with Amy. I tried to learn from that gift. So it's like you give me a gift and I put it on my shelf. So then when somebody says, do you have how Amy was affected book on your shelf? I'm like, in fact, I do. You know why I do? Because I received it from Amy instead of throw it back in her face, which is what we do when we rationalize instead of learn. And so we intake information and then we have a choice that's not hardwired. I can rationalize or I can learn. Okay. And most people rationalize and call it learning. And when they find out they're rationalizing, they rationalize it even better and with more slick wrapping paper and call that learning. But now they have to unwrap the wrapping paper and then to see that they're really not learning. So that's why you go backwards.
So what is let's pretend I'm a surgeon or a doctor and I'm looking for symptoms. Okay.
Yeah.
So what are symptoms
Of
learning behavior and symptoms of rationalizing behavior?
So I call them footprints. So it's very similar to the wind. And if you look at the wind, you can't really see it, but it's very powerful, right? So what do I look at when I want to understand that there's wind? I look at a leaf that might be blowing in the wind. And I call that a footprint of the wind, right? So there are footprints of having been receptive or effective. I use that, or modifiable. I use all three of those terms as almost synonyms, right? So in other words, I want to be able to understand. I can only I want to get to the point where I'm self-diagnosing whether I am suffocating my spirit or not. Okay. Because I can't rely on other people to tell me about it because they'll be polite or politically correct or something like that. So I am usually deprived of understanding, of getting feedback from somebody other than myself because I block it. So for example, if I do a yes, but do you want to come to my party? Yes, but I don't like going to parties. I don't put you in a situation to ask me a clarifying question because I've already explained it away and essentially blocked you from giving me feedback. So I'm the person at cause for blocking feedback to me.
If you say something like yes, but would be a footprint, what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yes, but would be a footprint, but it's yes, but is a footprint I can't see. Okay. That's what I'm actually doing. But here's how I can know I said yes, but. Okay. And this is what you've asked me, right? So if I feel like I like the person less, I haven't been receptive. If my energy is being depleted, I haven't been receptive. Right? If I am not surprised by what's in front of me, I haven't been receptive. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is broaden my perception processes to not just include the myopic vision of I have a hammer, so all I'm going to see are nails, right? So what we don't realize is we don't see the vast majority of stuff out there because we're allowing our vision to be tunnel vision and we only see what we expected to see. Expectations come from the past. And so I'm basically looking for what happened yesterday in today. And then I'm wondering why I'm not excited about today and why I'm so tired about today because I'm bored and I'm not learning anything. Right?
Because you're in yesterday.
Yeah, I'm in yesterday, but I'm driving a car and I'm looking out of the rear view mirror, but I think I'm looking, but my head is facing straight, so I must be looking out of the windshield. So we'll disagree to people until the cows come home, right? Look at my neck. It's not about your neck. It's about your eyes. Okay. Right. And so we have all these remedies to fix the neck and the neck doesn't have to change. It's the eyes that have to change. And so that's what I think a lot of the remedies are. But you asked me how I became upon this. And I often think of this one moment in which I was shocked into understanding, oh, I must be up to something that other people aren't because I just thought everybody was like this. So one footprint is that you get stuff, okay, in a negotiation, you get the other person to give you more than what you thought to ask for, and they tell you thank you. Okay, now that to me should be a common occurrence. Okay,
yes,
a common occurrence. And yet, when I spoke this to a really senior, professor at Stanford Business School in negotiation, they looked at me like I was a nutcase. And I'm like, well, I see I can't take your negotiation class because you're really just shuffling, stuff. You're not creating value, right? So I was working at a theme park, like it was called Wild World. It was like King's Dominion or what's over here. I can't even remember, water theme.
Yeah.
With I used to love them. Working them cured me of that. So now I really don't like going there. But so that was something I didn't know I was going to learn by working at this place. See, you see how this works? Well, anyway, I was I was on my feet all day and I was so hungry and I loved this bowl of French fries that was in front of me, but I really like ketchup on my French fries. The ketchup was so far away, I couldn't bring my feet to take me there. So my good friend, who was a friend of my brother, so I might have to preface this, I'm a middle child and this often happens to middle children. They get many more opportunities to kind of develop this skill of being heard because you're not necessarily the oldest or the youngest to, for example, be invited to go to California, which my dad invited my two older siblings who are twins and a year older than I was. And they said no. And I had this was the conversation. Oh, Dad, I hear you invited my siblings to go to California. And my answer to you is yes, like before he invited me, right? And those are, I would imagine you as a middle child also would have something like that going on.
Yes.
And I like and then my older brother says, he went to his family's with 3 sons, and there was the middle son, Daniel. And he goes, I thought I was talking to you, because he was sort of initiating. I think I got a lot of practice doing this. Well, anyway, it ends up that this guy, Steve, says to me, Jeannie, I've been observing you for 10 years. I'm like, oh, that's and he was cute too, and I was saying, oh, that's very interesting. He goes, you live in a world where other people don't exist. I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, I just saw you the other day. You were asking for something on a menu and they totally gave you something way better that wasn't even on the menu. Like, what are you owe it to the world to teach the whole world what the heck you're doing, because we have to live in that world, that interactive world. And as I was talking about it, I must have cocked my head, looked at the thing, maybe mentioned ketchup. He goes, wait a minute, let me go get you ketchup, right? So he goes all the way to the diagonal, farthest way, gets ketchup, and as he approaches the table, I guess he had a long time to think as he was approaching with his ketchup packets. He said, see, you just did it to me again. You made me want to give you ketchup. He didn't start, he had no idea. And this is where I think I extend the conversation to a whole different arena than most people think is the playground we should be playing in. That they think that Steve should have come to me already wanting to give me ketchup. So if he wasn't open to already giving me ketchup, then we couldn't have had this great time of his giving me ketchup. But I say, if he already wants to give me ketchup, I don't really have to do anything. Okay. But
Right.
it's only when they don't want to give me ketchup, when they are already closed, right? Or they don't even know that ketchup exists and they run off to get me ketchup. Now that requires effective interaction, right? And so our biggest play is in helping people go from being closed to wanting to be open.
How do I do that?
So it turns out.
So Jeannie, scooch a little bit towards the center of your screen, just there. Now I feel like I can see more of your face. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so how do I do it?
Okay, so the short answer is probably exactly in the opposite way that we think we should do it.
Okay.
Okay, and I think that that is an accurate enough answer. That's probably almost 100% of the time going to be right. That is my complete and final answer. But why don't I elaborate just a little bit more?
Maybe that'd be helpful.
And I'll tell you what the assumptions, the interesting part is people make assumptions that we don't know that we're making. Okay. For example, that there's a specific way I need to learn something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then when a teacher deviates from that process, that specific process, so I'm latching on rigidly to either a particular fact, like the student is poor and will always be poor, a particular and specific process. Okay. Like we spoke earlier about, I need to just listen. So I have to listen. Okay. Instead of participate, right? Or a specific outcome, like we talked about, the final destination. I almost want the future to be in the present. So those three attachments, or those three rigid holds on expectations, is what causes us to exactly frame ourselves out of the interaction. We think we're in the interaction and we're really not. So, and the only thing the interaction needs is me in it. Okay.
Right.
So we have to frame ourselves back into the interaction, and we're unknowingly framing ourselves out of that interaction. So I was going to speak about, what was that last question that you had?
Well, it was just like, how do I become more effective, right? How do I become effective? Like when somebody's not modifiable, it could even be as a parent going, I would love my kid to find a summer job, or I would like, and they're not wanting to do that, or whatever the thing is.
So I can have the one. It's sort of like I'm leaving a parking lot, okay? And I know I want to leave the parking lot. I know I do. But I'm going to go out the wrong exit. So you're asking me, how do I go out there? Now that I know I want to get out of this parking lot, okay, my status quo, and I call the parking lot status quo. So my kid doesn't have a job, and now I want them to have a job. So guess what I want to do? I want to upgrade the status quo. And I really want it. I know I want it. The next question. So what is it that I want? Check. The second step is how. Okay. Well, the second step is who's in a position to go first. So it's, what do I truly want? I want an upgrade to the status quo, right? I don't know what I want. I want to know what I want. My kid doesn't have a job. I want them to have a job, right?
And they may not want to have a job, right?
Irrelevant. Their want is none of my business.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That one belongs to me, not you. It happens to be about you, but it belongs to me. Okay. So I have to own the want. It has to be my want. Okay. I can want to have a glass of wine, or I could want you to have a glass of wine. Both of them are my wants, not yours.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And they are equally my wants. Now, one happens to be wine going into your body, and one happens to be wine going into my body. But both of those wants belong to me. So I have to take whatever's out there, and I have to create a want that belongs to me. It has my name on it. It does not belong to anyone else. If they I want, I don't care. If they
Right.
say, oh, I agree with you, I'm like, how is that relevant? Would be what I would say. Yeah. I do not care about similarity.
Oops, you've muted. You do not care about similarity. Okay.
Oh,
No, you're good.
yeah, I do not. Yes. Yeah, I care about being affected, about changing me, okay, about upgrading me, about breathing. You know, when we breathe, we upgrade our bodies.
Mhm.
When I learn, I upgrade my spirit. So somebody told me my book should be called I Work with Jerks, and it's all about me. Okay. And it's all about me. And when I turn my attention to it's what you wanted, isn't it nice of me to give you what you wanted?
That's so noble.
I do not call that arrogance. I call that severe arrogance. Okay. Severe arrogance. So I've identified 3 traps we commonly fall into in our pursuit to becoming effective. And I can talk about that another time. But anyway, I call those the channels of communication. So anyway, it made it very practical. So given that people don't give me feedback, I have to learn how to read better my own. So I developed a tool that is not just a diagnostic tool, it's also a prescriptive tool. So it tells me when I'm off the tracks, but it also tells me how to get back on the tracks.
And do I need to be on the tracks to get my kid to get a job because I've identified my want?
Yeah. And the only thing that matters is if I'm on the tracks. It doesn't matter if you are. It matters that I am.
Okay.
Okay. So the first thing is make it my want. Second is who's in a position to go first in getting my want? Well, guess what the answer is? This is the easiest answer. The person who has, go ahead, tell me.
The person who has the want.
Yay! That's exactly it. If you don't have a want, you do not get to talk. I used to have, I was a professor for a while, and I used to have office hours. And if my students did not come in with a want, I had 2 responses. One is, I would be happy to help you have a want, come up with a want, and then we can talk. Or if you don't want my help, you're going to have to leave and you're going to have to come up with a want another way. But I do not allow anybody in my office that does not have a want, who does not have carrying a want. Because if I don't have a want, I'm going to jump into the expectation space. I'm going to burden the other person. You know, it's like my, a relative of mine asked me, well, can you get a gift for somebody for Christmas? Sure, for me. She's elderly. Right? Well, who's it for? Not telling. How much would you like me to spend? Not telling. What kind of, like, we put too much. That was such a hard gift for me to come up with because she wasn't giving me any information about what she wanted. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're going to overly burden people if you don't walk in the room with your body and a want. Those are the 2 prerequisites.
A want it could be, I want my kid to get a summer job, or it could also be, I want to spend time with Jeannie.
Yes. And
that's so a want.
It is if you don't make it a demand. And so this is what a want, characteristics of a want are. I want to tell you as clearly as I can what it is that I truly want, but I'm not going to force you in any way, shape, or form to give it to me. Okay.
Right.
I have to do it in a non-forcing way. So let me give you a funny example of this. I was in Switzerland. Okay.
Okay.
And I was buying a car. And one of the things that people do in Switzerland is you find out a lot of stuff you thought worked a different way, and you find out fast you were absolutely wrong because you were not changing Switzerland. It turns out I tried.
Yeah.
So one of the things that people typically do is they buy 1-year-old used cars because they are taken care of so well that it's really one of the best deals that you can get. So they have all these used car lots of 1-year-old cars, right? And so I went with my colleague and we went, and he has a family and he needed a car. And I sort of wanted a car, even though I had this great apartment that didn't need a car, right? It was right on Lake Geneva, and I lived in Ushi, and I walked along the lake. Sometimes I say I walked on the lake to get to my office, but I typically didn't do that. Okay. But so I went in and I had an idea of what I wanted. I wanted a stick shift car, and I wanted a VW or a German car. And I even knew I wanted a Bora, which was kind of like a Jetta, but upgraded Jetta. And I didn't see one Jetta on the entire lot. So my friend got a car. I forget what kind of car I got. And so the salesperson said, well, what kind of car do you want? And I was a little sassy. It was a Saturday at 5 o'clock. They close at 5:10 or something. So I sort of said to him, well, you don't even have one car on your entire lot of the distinction I want, of the brand I want. And he goes, well, tell me what you want. And so because I had in my mind, it's not going to be there. That was fine. I could keep that in my mind, but I was going to answer his questions with a great amount of specificity. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what I want. I want a VW Bora that's 1 year old, has only one previous owner, that's a stick shift, that's under 30,000 kilometers, is silver gray on the outside and a dark velour gray on the inside. And so I said, and I gave him I said, so here's my card. Call me when the car rolls in. Literally that sassy. Okay. I was sassy. I had this belief it wasn't ever going to happen, but he asked me what I wanted. I'm giving him what I wanted. That was the only thing we exchanged. And I wanted to make note that nothing about my demeanor I was proud of, except for one. I completely and honestly offered him what I truly wanted. That's the only thing that I would have given myself a passing grade on. Okay. Good thing that's enough. Because on Sunday, the shop was closed, 9 o'clock in the morning. I get a call. It's the French speaking part of the world. And he says, Madame, it's a call from the salesperson. Madame, your car just rolled in. He goes, it has every single thing you wanted. You gave me this image and I was just looking out of the corner of my eye, what was rolling in. It was slotted to go to my colleague. I dropped the phone call I was on. I run out to my colleague. I tackle him and say, oh, no, that car is meant for me. And then I say, well, I'm busy. I'm teaching now all the time. I don't have time to go down to your shop. I'll bring the car to you. He says, I'm like, have you ever done that? No, but I want to. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw in 4 snow tires too. And then he gives me this incredible deal, much lower than I would have paid for it. I said, why are you giving me this discount? He says, well, we have a policy if we buy 2 cars that the second car gets a discount. Well, I'm just going to consider your colleague's car to have been the first car, and I'm going to give you the discount on your car.
Oh my gosh.
So what happened here was that because of the manner in which I was being, not what I was saying, not how the style in which I was acting, not the clothes I was wearing, and not that my eye color either. Okay. And these are all the things that we assume are effective, and they are irrelevant to effectiveness, right? Effectiveness begins by sharing what I truly want. I have to intake information and process it with the goal of finding out more what I truly want. And that basically is the inspiring process of information. I inhale information, I exhale what I want. I inhale information, I exhale what I want. That's what I'm in the creation mode for, right? So he wanted me to have the car more than I wanted to have the car. And that's how we really connect. It's my heart is connecting to his heart. You see? So all of a sudden I put him on my team. So he's willing to run the ball forward in my game, even when I'm tired and I don't have time to go to his shop. Well, let me see what I can do. I'll drive it to you, right? So I quickly got one of my colleagues who I'm still a good friend with now. This is over 20 years ago. And I go, quick, can you do a test ride with me? Can you give, this, look at the predicament I'm in. I'm going to get this car, And so that's what I mean by creating situations that are beyond your imagination, beyond your expectations, really. I don't know. Was that a good story?
So you said there were like 3 ways.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What is what I want? Who is the person who has a want? That's the shortest answer.
Who is the what?
Whoever has the want is the person to go first.
It's the person to go first. Okay.
Yeah. So if I want that person to change, I have the want. It happens to be about their behavior, but it's my want. Do you see that? My want.
Yeah.
That's kind of like my ticket of admission. If I don't have, then I'm going to have to stop talking.
Right.
Okay. In mid-sentence. So who's in a position to go first? The person who has a want. 3, and the last question is how. And the how part is 99% of the information about effective interactions. 1% is coming up with your want. Who is almost 0 seconds. Okay, that's always a given, whoever has a want. So I don't even ask that question anymore. And then how, okay? And we have the answer to the how part, the answer to all 3 is pretty counterintuitive, right? Because what is it that I want? I want you to change. Well, who's the owner of that want? It's me, not you. So we usually get that one wrong. Then who has to change? We usually think the person who has to change is the person who has the deviant behavior. No, it's the person who has the want to change the deviant behavior. Who the deviant behavior belongs to, irrelevant.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then how? So all three of them we answer, in my opinion, exactly wrong, which leads to why I say, would do the opposite of what you think you should do. And you'll probably get it right.
That's why I like
Right?
your book title, right? I
Well,
work with jerks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
So,
ding, ding,
now,
ding.
so here's the difference between the how. Often we think we have to provide data or information to other people in order. How am I going to get my kid to get a job? I have to tell him what he should know, what he should do, or what he should want.
Ooh.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And that is how we are trained, even in decision analysis classes. This is the big mistake. If I am operating, doing the verb, so what is it I want? Who's in position to go forward? Check, check. If we don't get the how part right, nothing else matters. Okay. It's not about changing what other people are knowing, what other people are doing, or what other people are wanting. It's about changing how I am being. Okay. So I have to be a catcher, not a thrower. So if you can imagine, I'm throwing at you what you should know. I'm throwing at you what you should do. I'm throwing at you. I'm likely going to throw a hard ball, hit that guy's head, and he's going to be falling down with a headache. So I didn't accomplish anything I wanted. I actually created more problems. Okay. And I did it at a great effort and time cost to me. Now, how would you like to be in a situation in which you yourself are making the situation worse? And now it's because of you. Okay. And that's really what this is the predicament we get into so much. I have an allergic reaction to it all the time. Right.
Right. And you're saying one of the mechanisms we do is you should do, like adding
Right.
should, right?
I'm shoulding on other people.
Yeah.
But I'm shooting 3 different kinds of balls. This is not going to sound good. I'm shooting what you should know balls, what you should do balls, and I'm throwing what you should want balls. You should want to have a job. Look at right.
Right.
How you should want it. And I am somehow under this impression that I have advanced that person's interest in wanting to do something about it. Because that's really what we have. That just like my friend Steve, he owned the want to get me ketchup more than I did. Just like the guy who sold me the used car, he owned the want of getting. So I transferred him. I made him co-opt my want, but I couldn't do it forcibly.
No.
Okay. So what I've discovered, okay, in what is effective in the how we should proceed to create an effective interaction. I have to be in catch mode, and I have to want you to be in catch mode. So I need to invite you to play a game of catch with me. Okay. It turns out if I get myself in catching mode or receiving mode, it prompts you in not just being in catching or receiving mode, it prompts you into wanting to be in receiving mode. So that becomes the mechanism that we must, and I call that getting us back on the tracks. Okay. The tracks are about playing a game of catch with each other instead of a game of throw at each other. It's not hard if somebody invites me to play a game of catch. I automatically want to play a game of catch. That's not even hard. It's very similar to the biblical verse. You don't get credit for loving people who love you already. Right? This, by the way, is very simple. It's really about how to be loving. It's really about that skill. I do a lot of my work in the theology group and then religious organizations, and I teach an enormous number of Catholic priests. Okay. And they who are teaching about loving, I teach them how to be loving when they're teaching about loving. And they all are just mesmerized. Okay. Because the skill that we do not learn, and it's one of the only skills I know of that we all must learn and we all can learn. We would not have been given the command to love if we weren't situated to be able to execute on that successfully.
Right. So
the how part, I have to be ready to catch the ball that I want. Instead of telling you to throw it, I have to say I'm ready to catch it. And that catching triggers the interest in wanting to throw.
Okay. So then are you done with that part? Because
Maybe, but do you have any, is that clear?
I just love to go this,
Yeah.
like, let's
Okay.
pretend I don't want to clean my room, or I
Right.
don't want to get a summer job. Like, I don't like, that's when we think about like really difficult, it's like, oh my,
Well,
right?
one
And
of the things, yeah,
so
one of the
how
things,
could this go? How could you show up in a way
yeah,
that demonstrates, like, say, let's pretend you have that want for me,
yeah.
right? How could how demonstrate, what does that look like?
Okay, so let's say I want you to clean your desk or something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I could say, "Oh, Amy, I would love to help you more, and I work better with a clean desk. Would you be willing to clean your desk, or can I help you do it?"
Hmm. Right.
How would that affect you?
I feel much better about cleaning my desk.
Would you, how, so let me give you another example that's in the same vein. You
Mhm.
can come to my party if you want to, versus, okay, that's not effective. I
Mhm.
don't have my catcher out, right? Will you come to my party? It won't be the same without your being there.
Mhm.
The
Right.
dessert was good versus I enjoyed it very much. They want to cook for me again.
Right. Right.
Okay. And
Right.
so really
But,
getting into, yeah,
and sometimes we've talked about this before. Sometimes you order ice cream and you get fruit salad, right?
yeah, right.
Right? I ordered ice cream, I got fruit salad. Now what?
Okay. So it turns out the manner in which I engage with wanting to get the ice cream, and there's no more ice cream. So I get to have fruit salad.
Mhm.
It turns out that interaction changes my want. Remember, I told you that I'm always in the business of upgrading my want. So I have an example. I was stopping in Michigan or somewhere for an airplane, and I wanted to know if I could get an operational upgrade. Your husband would know what that means, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes me sound smart. Somebody told me this because I learned. Okay. Well, I asked in such a way that the guy wanted to give me, the airline really, really wanted to give me the upgrade. In fact, he says, "Why don't you wait? There's only 8 seats in business class. I I really want you to have this one seat that is already taken, but the guy is transferring from another flight, right? And he might not make it in time. And if he doesn't make it, we'll put him on a later flight. And I want to give you that seat. Would you mind being one of the last people on the plane so that I can do this?" So it became his want, see?
Mhm.
And when he couldn't offer it to me, and he said, "But here are 3 free drink coupons, and here's my card. Next time you come in on any of the flights in this airline, call me because I want to be able to give it to you." I've, I've, he caught the contagion of one. It was his want. He wanted to upgrade me, right? Because of the manner that I'm being. I'm not taking it for granted. I'm very grateful. Okay. I'm not behaving in an entitled way, which many people do, right?
Mhm.
So I'm saying I'm not taking anything for granted. I don't assume you owe me anything. My mom used to tell me, all you have to do is die and everything else is optional. Okay. So that means that, and I even got out of a business school class that I didn't want to take. That was a required class. And the dean says, "Well, you have to pass your classes." And I interrupt her and say, "My mom told me that all I ever had to do was die and everything else is optional. When did that rule change?" That's my question. And I got out of the class. Okay. But um, so it turns out I got the fruit cup, not the ice cream. The ice cream would be the first class seat or the business class seat. The fruit cup is the coach seat. Do you know how happy I was to be in the coach seat? If you asked me, did I win on that interaction? My answer would be absolutely yes. But we're measuring the wrong things. We're measuring the outcome instead of the result.
Mm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
the result is how I'm feeling about it. So I had a sister-in-law who had a very advanced form of cancer, and there was nothing that would stop it. But there was a new treatment in immunotherapy. And I got her into Dr. George Fisher here at Stanford. But I didn't get her to be among his patients because he wasn't even accepting new patients at the time.
Mhm.
And he had such a good relationship with the drug companies like Pfizer, right? That were giving him, as one of a handful of oncology doctors, free use of this new drug any way they want it. So this is preclinical trial, right? A lot of people want to get into clinical trials and they have to and they might even be a placebo, but that's like they're swinging for the hills that way, right? But this is even more precious than that. It's somebody taking you on and saying, I'm going to give this to you for free in the way I think you should, that would help you the most, right? It was unbelievable. And it created so much hope, especially among her kids, right? And so Dr. Fisher asked me, I told Dr. Fisher this, and this is very decision analytic related, okay? I said, Dr. Fisher, if we do the very best, if we have effective interactions, which leads us to making the best decisions or the allocation of our scarce resources, I don't think you can achieve the best input and the best even thinking about decision analytic concepts if we're not in receiving mode, if we're not using our receptive brain, we're using our judgmental brain, okay? We're using our brain as a weapon instead of as a tool. So I have to shift, effective interactions is shifting my brain so I'm using it as a learning tool. And that's when I'm going to get the best thinking of decision making, and it will lead to the highest probability of getting the best results, right? But again, I have to be careful about what I'm measuring. I have to measure results, not outcomes, right? And so when I was talking to Dr. Fisher, I said, I can totally live with our making effective decisions and my sister-in-law dying than not making effective decisions and her dying. One is a successful outcome. The other is a failed outcome, and they both end in death. He looks at me like I'm crazy. And I tell him, I'd be happy. This is one of the most important tenets of decision analytical thinking. I'd be happy to share this with you. But that's the reason why I believe he took us, because I guess he lives in a world in which people are going to beat him up when their relative dies.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have control over that. Right. So I think he was pleasantly surprised by how clear I was on wanting to gauge him on the decision-making part, the verb part, without having a rigid attachment to a particular outcome, like survival. I don't know. I think that's
I think it's so powerful.
Yeah.
I think it's so powerful. So we have shoulds. Are there other things that we get to watch for?
Well,
of symptoms of going off the tracks, like, ooh,
it gets to really the bottom line is protecting my own good behavior. So what I want to do is I want to protect my interest in wanting to interact with this person in the future. There was a time, I'll give you some examples. Okay, I'll give you 2 examples of this. Okay. And then the conclusion, just so I can tell you what to listen for, is it doesn't matter about the other person. It matters all about me. All I'm doing is protecting my own good behaviors. It turns out when we're frustrated, we think we're frustrated about other people or about the situation. We're really frustrated about ourselves and our missed or misbehaviors. Okay, missed, M-I-S-S-E-D, or miss, M-I-S, behaviors. Okay? So we're usually mistaken about what we think and how we do it and what we're reaching for. We make mistakes. We miss on all 3 of those. Okay. Right. So, okay. The first example was, so I was, I had a very, very long day. I was in San Diego, and I had I think the 7:00 p.m. flight back up here to San Jose. And very unjustly, very, very unjustly, they gave my seat away. Prior, and I was there in plenty of time, but they gave my seat away. So they say, Madame, well, they said Madam, I guess, because you have to wait 2 more hours. And I was exceptionally tired. Normally, I wouldn't have a problem with this, but I was exceptionally tired. I'm like, I'm not going to get home until after midnight. Are you kidding me? When I could have otherwise gotten home by 9:00. I think I had to wait 3 hours, right? And I told my feet, I was livid. Okay. So here I was in a situation, I didn't like this person. They behaved badly, and I think to myself, in a court of law, you would come up guilty, but that doesn't help me, because now I have the result of carrying around this burden of not liking this person. I'm fuming, like fume is coming out of my ears, fume. I'm like on fire inside. So I tell my feet don't move until you like this person more. So you're going to have to find something to learn and learn it. Find something to like and like it, or find something to appreciate and appreciate it. And feet, you're not allowed to move until you get there. So I come up with this question of, well, what's your favorite place to eat around here if you were in my situation? I can, yeah, I think I would like to have a good meal. I don't know which way to go. We do it, and it ends up, we talk a little about that. And then she hands me like coupons for the airline to pay for my meal. So anyway, we have this, I end up engaging with her through my strategy of finding something to learn, like, or appreciate from her that arrives me at a receptive way of being toward her, which then allows me to like her more. So even as I'm telling you this story, I'm not telling, I don't know if you know this, but certain people can tell stories that still have the angst in them.
Mm-hmm.
And so somebody can tell me a story and I say, oh, you weren't receptive in that story. How do you know, Jeannie? You weren't there 2 years ago. I'm like, I can tell because you're still carrying it around with you. Okay. And so we're really trying to unburden ourselves. We're trying to intake what's in front of us and to create it into an interest bearing account instead of a cost bearing account. And I'm in control of that because I get to process how nobody can take my processing away from me. That's something that belongs only to me, as my breathing does. Right. So that was one. The other one was, there's this, I was teaching in Switzerland, and there was this really, really disgruntled, awful, sexist participant in my group. And he was just awful toward me, awful. I was co-teaching with another faculty member who was a senior, and he couldn't even believe it. It was so awful that he didn't even know how to intervene. You know how somebody's going tracks and you're, I don't even know what to do to fix this. It's so bad.
Yeah.
Well, I go to lunch and I realize I have 4 more hours with this guy. And I think to myself, what is it that I truly want? I want to have a very nice 4 hours after lunch, unlike the 4 hours before lunch.
Mm-hmm.
So I say, what is it that I want? And then I say, what is my job? The who is me. So I want to know, what is my job? That's another way to get into it. And how do I do it? So I go back to this, find something to like and like it, because I realized the thing that was getting in my way and was going to claim my attention and render the next 4 hours to be hell on earth was how I was attaching into it. Right? I was attaching into it. So I think and think and think at lunch. And I decide that I say, feet, take me to this person. He was having lunch somewhere else. And I say, mouth, speak. And I look at him in a very staunch way. I say, I like your red shirt. Red is a color that's really hard to get right. And you got it right. And then, because I found something to like and I liked it. And then I turn on my heels and just go back. So I have to behave my way into it. I can't just think it. I have to behave it. I have to behave learning. I have to be, these are action verbs. They're not thought processes. They're behavioral processes. So one of the laws of human nature, okay, one of the earlier ones I didn't mention is receiving comes before the giving, right? The second one is I behave my way into a belief change. So I want to change my belief about not liking this guy with the red shirt to liking this guy in the red shirt. To change my belief requires I have to behave my body into it for my belief to change. One of the ways to do that is for me to behave something to like. Behave it, right? So that means I have to do something with it behaviorally outside my body. That's what locks it in. So he follows me, buys me coffee, and he becomes a wonderful participant just with that. I was amazed. It was like magic. Well, that didn't surprise me the most. The next day, my colleague Jim came up to me and he said, Jeannie, I just had to laugh. I saw you yesterday. I'm like, so what did you see? He goes, you're one of the only teachers that actually does and behaves what you teach. And so I saw you tell that guy with the red shirt that you liked his red shirt, because I know you were finding something to like and liking it. And I saw how it worked. And I said, and I thought to myself, I believe that's the only thing you could have liked about that guy. And I looked at him and I go, well, good thing you only need one. And so I think we really underestimate. It takes one person. I only have to like one thing. It's almost like it sets in motion 100% of the mechanism. I don't have to like him for a very long time, and I don't have to like a lot of things about him. But you see what I'm doing? I'm digesting it. I'm turning on a different digestion of my information about him.
Mm-hmm.
My processing unit is shifted.
Well,
and that's
I think what's interesting is I have not heard you say, I'm using receiving theory, I'm being receptive, like all of those things. And then I'm going to deploy this mechanism. I've never heard you say, and then this mechanism will be deployed. No,
Yeah.
it's not. Actually, what I'm hearing is it's not at all about mechanism.
No, no.
It's all about just how I'm receiving, how I'm showing up.
So the thing is, I'm either receptive or I'm not receptive. I have a conversation the other day with somebody. Well, I'm becoming more receptive, or I'm becoming
No. You're pregnant or you're not pregnant.
Yeah. The light is on or it's off, and there is no dimmer switch. Okay, there is no you know what? Be receptive as clumsily as you can. That's my recommendation. Okay. And so there's no, it's an internal state. It's either on or off, right?
Yeah.
And so when it's off, I try to nice my way into stuff. I can't nice my way into being kind. I'm either kind or I'm not kind. And when I'm not kind, I try to be nice to compensate for not being kind, but I cannot nice my way into being kind.
I think nice is worse than, being nice is worse than being mean.
It is, in fact. And that's what we were talking about before.
That was one amazing thing that I was like, what? We were talking one time. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah. Yes.
Why being nice is worse than being mean.
It is. And why do you think that?
Why do I think that?
Yeah.
Because at least when you're being mean, you're being honest.
Right. So you have two. So here's the example I like to use. My friend calls me, my husband just apologized to me and now I'm twice as mad. I said, oh, what did he say? Oh, he said, I'm sorry, but there's the but. It wasn't my fault. I said, oh, you know what? Before you had one problem, now you have two problems. Yeah, being twice as mad sounds like the right outcome. Congratulations, you got the correct feedback. This is one case in which you didn't talk yourself out of it. Right. So I turned around this guy at this very sexist organization because they hired me. And I said, oh, I really am kind of reluctant to sign on because I see how you treat women here. And I don't think it's really that good. Well, tell you what, you can help. I'll change. I will do. And you can help me change. He didn't change for 2 years. I went up to him. I was just standing side by side. I said, I think I made a mistake. And I was sincere. It was my mistake. I think I believed that you wanted to change, that you could change, but now I think I made the wrong decision. I didn't say he didn't change, he should have changed. Who do I know? Maybe he couldn't change. But I told him, I didn't say he was mean and awful and if I were in America, you'd be incarcerated. I didn't say that. Okay. But I did say, I think I just made the wrong decision when I thought you could change, but I think you couldn't. Guess what? With that one conversation, he changed.
Wow.
So and he actually started a women in leadership program that he asked me to lead. So, and that's when that started, but it didn't start from long time. We shift in one moment. We shift from one effective interaction puts people on a new train track. And that's what I look for. We're one step away. You parachute onto it.
And what I'm also hearing you say is that you can always shift. You can always be open to another ball to say, this is my want, like what you said with this gentleman, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I was wrong. I thought you wanted to change. I was incorrect in my thinking.
Possibility that you could. I thought I was going to be able to live in a world in which you didn't behave like you were behaving. But maybe I was wrong about that.
Yeah.
And I didn't say it with any interest in wanting him to be different. So we really have to get rid of this understanding that we need other people to be different or to change. Mm-hmm. I'm sort of dancing with them and I can change my steps. Mm-hmm. I don't have to tell them they can change if they're going to step on my foot, I just move my foot. So it's not under their foot when they step down. Do you see? That's a much higher probability of success.
Right. No, absolutely. And then there's always that, and to step into the behavior, right? Yeah. Just step in, start behaving, and then shift. Oh, wow, that didn't.
But I have to tell you, I have to allow myself to be effective. So I wanted to make a point even clearer about that. If somebody is not receptive toward me and I'm having difficulty, I can't pretend that I'm not having difficulty. Okay. Mm-hmm. So 2 short examples come to my mind, which I think are imperative. So if you don't get the last step, don't bother doing the other steps first. Okay. So I'll do one step. I happened to be the higher status person. I was teaching this class. There was another guy, disagreeable guy, who wasn't learning in my class, and he was all of a sudden destructive. So you can't learn and judge at the same time, but he's there judging. So we have a break, and I went up to him at the break because I realized I was being affected by him. It's sort of like somebody, like you get this wind source at you that's a distraction. I want to tell him not to do that anymore because it's distracting me, because I want to be of more full-time engaged in the teaching process. And I believe his distraction is preventing me from being how I would like to be, full focused. So I went up to him at the break and I said, I'm sure you think you're learning, but you're actually not learning. You're judging. So anything that I say is not going to help you. And when you're doing that, you're hurting my ability to teach the other people here who do want to learn. So I want to invite you to come back after the break, but only if you decide to learn, and I'll help you learn. And if you decide to judge, that's fine. I'm going to have you take your chair and put it in the hallway, because you're really not in my classroom when you're not learning. But I wanted to be clearer with you. If your chair isn't in my classroom, you won't be mistaken and think that you are in my classroom. So here I am with a 35-year-old man telling him he had to be in a timeout in my classroom. So I said, but I did it. It was the manner in which I was doing it. I was sharing with him what I wanted. Okay. So if you do this, I want you in my class. And if you do that, I'm going to tell you, this is my response. So I have a response for what you do, but you get to choose what you're going to do. And I'm forecasting to you how I'm going to respond to it. So I'm not going to deprive you of the rightful consequences of your actions. And that's a very important piece of it. Well, lo and behold, and you often have to act on incomplete information. You can't know what burdens they're carrying around with them or their previous experience. But if you are focused on what you truly want, that is your best guide forward. I don't have to know that he was treated as, he developed this way of being in this company as being the company clown, because that was the only way he could get attention. And I could not have known that I was the first person who treated him with great respect. So in 10 years, he had not been treated. He goes, you're going to change my entire trajectory in this company because of how you treated me. When I irritated you, you loved me enough to tell me that that's how I was affected. I was affecting you. And so that's what we're really signing up for, is telling people how I am affected by you all the time. So thank you for this, Amy. I always
Oh
learn.
my gosh. Thank you so much.